6 true ghost stories from nurses that will haunt you. Welcome to our channel. Tonight we delve into the world of hospitals, places of healing, but also places where life and death constantly intersect. Our first story takes us deep inside an old hospital, its walls filled with the echoes of years past. And in this hospital there's one room, room 303, that nurses avoided, even during daylight hours.
One night I was called to room 303. A patient had just passed and I needed to check on him one last time. As I turned to leave, I stopped dead in my tracks. The shadowy figure, the man I'd heard so much about, he was no longer by the window. He was standing right next to the bed, staring down at the deceased patient, his form flickering in the dim light. The room, already considered cursed, was immediately closed off, converted into a storage closet. But the stories about room 303 and the man who haunted it never died.
Our next story comes from a hospice, a place where life's final chapter is written. A nurse working the night shift began to notice something strange about the elevator. See, every time a patient was nearing the end, the elevator would arrive on their floor, unprompted.
One particularly eerie night, my colleagues and I saw the elevator doors slide open, revealing an empty car. But the air turned ice cold, a chill that seemed to seep into our bones. Moments later, the phone rang. It was news that a patient had just passed away. Some dismissed it as coincidence, but not everyone.
Now let's step into the world of a pediatric ward, a place where hope and despair walk hand in hand. Nurses working on this ward started noticing something unusual. It was a sound, a child's voice, softly singing a lullaby.
Determined to find the source of the singing, I followed the sound down the hallway. It led me to an unoccupied room, dark and silent. But as I reached for the doorknob, the singing stopped. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The room was empty, except for a rocking chair in the corner, swaying gently back and forth as if an invisible force was pushing it. Later, I discovered the heartbreaking truth about that room. Years ago, a young child who loved to sing had passed away in that very room.
Chapter 4, The Helping Hand. Imagine the chaos of an ER, the frantic energy as doctors and nurses fight to save lives.
The room was a blur of activity, the air thick with tension. Suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder, a firm, reassuring grip, and a voice, calm and steady, whispered in my ear, "You've got this."
She turned, expecting to see a colleague, but there was no one there, just an empty space.
I managed to stabilize the patient, my training kicking in. Later, when I recounted the experience to another nurse, I was met with a knowing look.
Turns out she wasn't the first to experience something unexplainable in that room. Chapter 5, The Nurse Who Never Left.
Multiple nurses working in this wing had reported seeing a woman dressed in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform, the kind they wore back in the 1950s. Patients would describe her as kind, gentle, saying she adjusted their blankets, offered words of comfort, and then just as quickly as she appeared, she'd vanish.
Some believe she never truly left, her spirit drawn back to the place where she had dedicated her life to caring for others. Chapter 6, The Smiling Man in the Hallway. Our final story takes us to the quietest part of the hospital, a place most people avoid, the morgue. As I turned a corner I saw him, a man in a hospital gown standing at the end of the hall. He was just standing there, unmoving, a strange, unsettling smile on his face. I called out to him asking if he was all right, but he didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge my presence. As I cautiously approached, the man turned and walked towards a door at the end of the hallway, a door I knew was always locked. He walked right through the locked door and disappeared. Later that night she checked the hospital records. There, in the system, was a record of a patient, a man matching the description of the smiling man who had passed away just hours earlier. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales from the dark side of healthcare, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories. And remember, the next time you're in a hospital, late at night, listening to the quiet hum of machines, think about the stories we've shared. Stay tuned for more ghost stories, and remember, the next eerie tale could be just around the corner.